Okay, so let's give it 2 more minutes to have more people on the call with us, and we will officially start. Welcome, everyone. Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to ProductTank Lagos. I'm Moyinoluwa Sobowale, an organizer of ProductTank Lagos, and I'm super excited to have you all here with us today. For our first timers, thank you for joining our virtual meetup. ProductTank Lagos is a community of product people trying to own our craft, and this is home for you if you are a product person. For the OGs, thank you for joining us once more, and thank you for always showing up. We appreciate you and we love you. So I will quickly get into today's agenda so that we can see what we have in store for everyone. Okay, so I will briefly introduce Mind the Product and ProductTank Lagos, and then we'll have a World Product Day intro from Todd Olson. I will also introduce the moderators and the speakers for today's event, and we'll get right into our fireside chats. After that, we'll have our announcements. And please stay till the end of this session because I will be sharing free learning resources for all attendees. And finally, we will wrap up and close. Also, feel free to tag us on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and also X. I have displayed our handles on the screen, so you can just tag us via our various social media platforms, and we'll do well to retweet your messages and everything. Okay, so let's get right into it. Welcome, everyone. This is your cue to invite your friends as well. Please invite everyone you know, especially women, so that they can benefit from this session. So Mind the Product and ProductTank are a global network of product professionals around the world. Mind the Product started in 2010 with like-minded people coming together to agree on what they were doing at the time. And they saw it as an opportunity to define product processes and also make product processes better. And it was also an opportunity to share wins and also failures so that newbie product managers or other people in the field could learn from their mistakes. ProductTank Lagos is part of Mind the Product. And I must mention that there are many product tanks all over the world today. We basically host free informal meetups, both virtual and physical meetups for product managers and even product designers and product marketers to come together to learn, network in an informal setting. We have been in existence as ProductTank Lagos. We've been in existence since 2017, and we currently have over 4,400 members on Meetup. So shout out to everyone on this call. Shout out to all our community members. Shout out to the volunteers for making ProductTank Lagos possible. And thank you for being a part of the community. Thank you for joining our physical and our virtual meetups. This is also your cue to send the YouTube link to your friends to join the call with us to learn from the session, as well as I have exceptional product leaders on the call with us today. So let's move on. So Wednesday, 15th of May 2024 was World Product Day, and we participated in a global celebration of people behind products. ProductTank Lagos highlighted the reasons why some amazing product managers love building products. You can check our posts on X, on LinkedIn, and also Instagram as well. It was a fun day for us. And this virtual meetup, that's today's virtual meetup, is in fact a continuation of our World Product Day celebration. Before we kick off today's event, I would like us to watch a very brief message from Todd Olson. He is the co-founder and CEO of Pendo, and he has a few words for us today. Okay, 1 second, please. While I'm trying to get that video up, we'll just wait for more people to join the call as well. Okay. Okay. So I guess we. Oh, it seems the video didn't play. Not to waste our time, I'll play the video later. So let's just get right into it. So today's session would be moderated by not only me, but someone who is an outstanding product person and also the founder of Blue. I will introduce her to the stage so she can tell us about herself and also explain to us why we are gathered here today. So yeah, I'll bring up Mary so she can let us know why we're on this call today. Hi, Mary.
Hello. Thank you so much, Moy, for having me today, and hello to everyone around the world. It is my distinct pleasure to be here today. I am based in Richmond, Virginia, a couple of hours away from Washington, D.C., and I learned of ProductTank Lagos because I had the amazing experience to attend the Inspire Africa conference in Lagos, Nigeria, back in September. And it was at that event that I had the honor of meeting all of the partners of Silicon Valley Product Group, two of which are here today. And as product people do, I spent my week at that conference asking for attendee feedback on their experience and what else they would have wanted to potentially hear about at that event. And one of the topics that kept coming up was we're really, really interested in women in product and also career advancement. So here we are today, and Lea and Martina have been so generous with their time to join us today. So thank you for allowing me to join you.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining me today. So now I would introduce one of our speakers and so I would be introducing Lea Hickman. For over 25 years, Lea has been leading product teams to deliver world-class products used by millions of people. Starting her career at IBM, where she was building applications for Fortune 500 companies, she went on to lead product teams at Netscape, Macromedia, Adobe, and also InVision. I work in technology evangelism, partnerships, product marketing, and product management, give her insights on how people can drive the entire business. At Macromedia, she worked directly for the president of products and the CTO on new business opportunity team, responsible for new products and businesses that leverage the Flash player. I'm sure we all know the Flash player. Lea has deep passion for products and mentoring product teams, regardless of where they are in their own transformation. She's a graduate of Lee University with a BA in psychology and of Stanford University Executive Institute. Join me in welcoming Lea Hickman.
Thanks,
Hi,
Moy.
Lea.
Hi. Thank you so much for asking me to attend today. I'm very excited to be here with you all.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll bring up our next speaker.
So I am pleased to introduce Martina Lauchengco. Martina, like Lea, is also a partner of Silicon Valley Product Group. She has extensive experience in both product and marketing leadership. She has fantastic stories out there, especially if you haven't seen them on YouTube yet, about her work with Microsoft, working as a product manager on Microsoft Word. I highly recommend you follow and listen to those stories. She is also a lecturer at the University of California, Berkeley, Graduate School of Engineering. She is a partner of Costanoa Ventures and sits on multiple boards and coaches startups. One of my favorite things about Martina is that she is the author of this fabulous book, let me get it here, called Loved. Highly recommend if you haven't read it yet. And also, fun fact, all of the royalties from Martina's book are donated to organizations that support the advancement of women and underrepresented minorities in technology. So it's a fantastic resource. Martina holds degrees from Stanford University, and she joins us today from California. So welcome, Martina.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thanks so much for having us.
Welcome, Martina. So we'll begin the fireside chat now. Please do well to drop your questions in the comment section. We already collected some questions before today, but would like to get more questions from the people that are just attending the session or just knew that they could submit their questions. So we'll be looking at the chat box, that's the comment section, to see your questions, and then we can post them to Martina and Lea to answer. So we'll give some minutes for you to drop your questions before we start.
And Lea, I ask if you haven't already, please drop in the chat where you're joining us from. Where in the world are you today? I see Lagos, I see Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm in Virginia. Martina's from California.
I'll just add too, while people are dropping things in the chat, one of the things that most impressed Lea and I when we were in Africa last year was how many women leaders in product there were and how incredibly impressive all of them were. We're like, whoa, women leadership in product in Africa is amazing. So what a great group of people you have to learn from around you.
The best part about doing these chats with Martina is she's so articulate and she says exactly the right thing that I don't have to say anything. It's perfect.
And of course, I'm always self-critical. I'm like, oh, did I say that in a really thoughtful way? We're all so critical of ourselves.
Thank you, Lola. Okay, so we have Jessica from Lagos. We have Strength. I can't really pronounce his name, but we have someone from Las Vegas. We also have Ella from Lagos and Fermi from Lagos. Like Mary said, please drop your location in the comment section so we can wave at you and say hi. Hi, Anike from Lagos. Hi, Joke from Lagos. Ooh. We were also expecting your questions in the comment section before we fully begin. We also have Sheyi from Lagos. Okay, so while we're waiting for questions, so that we don't waste time, I think we can just start Mary. We're good to go. Oh, so to
Okay.
start, yeah.
So one of the questions that we had received prior to today's event, and it's probably a good place to start, is what advice, Lea or Martina, do you have about product managers that are junior in their career and they're trying to find their path? What advice would you have for those folks?
That's a big and broad question.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, you know, especially starting out in your career, I found that when I was working on products that I really loved or I understood the need, it was a great place to really develop my skills as a product manager because I could build that empathy with the customer or with the user. And so as I was honing my skills, when I felt passionate about that, it was really helpful for me because it felt like I wasn't even working. Similarly, when we work with clients, I really love it when people are working on products that have that higher purpose. It's just a great way for us to believe in the vision and the strategy of the product. So that's one thing from the product side. Your passion, follow the things that you want to work on. And Martina and I were talking earlier about how fortunate we are that we get to work with people that we really love. And that also helps. So when you can, you know, work on a product that you love and also work with people that you really love and respect and you can learn from, that's a wonderful thing.
I'll add that often in the early parts of your career, you'll ask yourself, do I work for this startup that's just trying to do stuff where everybody's learning? Or do I start at a company that's more established, that has a product path where I might be doing something that's not particularly interesting because it's a well-established product? And I will admit that I'm very biased because I chose I'll just work at a company that has a well-established product. But I will say the amount of learning that I got by choosing that path was equivalent to, I would say, double what I observed when I went to Silicon Valley, someone with equivalent experience had. And part of it was because at Microsoft, I started my career as a product manager at Microsoft for Word. It had a very disciplined approach to how it did many, many things. So you got to experience maturity and excellence. I'll also say early in your career, if you choose that path, you're going to get crap. The stuff that you're the young one. So we're going to give you, I got Word for DOS because it's like everybody's stepchild. They're like, well, we still have to keep it alive. But you know, they literally handed it to me and say, just don't ruin anything. But they could give it to me as the lead because I was the youngest, newest product manager. And I basically took that, and rather than just saying like, okay, my job is to babysit it, it was a box that had a flap, which this is back when software was distributed physically. And I said, well, that must be expensive. And I went to the folks that tracked the bombs and I said, how much is this box costing us? And so I recommended making a change. I didn't ask anyone's permission, but it just made business sense. And we changed the box and it saved over $1 million for a product we were trying to end of life. And showing that initiative and that curiosity, even when I was just being asked to babysit, that's the kind of thing that got me noticed and gave me future opportunities. So I'll say, wherever you go and whatever they give you, just do an amazing job and be curious and push it to another level. And that's going to help serve you extremely well for the rest of your career.
Thank you so much for those insightful answers. Another question we had, and I'm so sorry, I may not pronounce your name properly, Safumi. The question is, what would you say is the biggest blocker for women entering and growing in the product space?
I think, just going to call a spade, there is a lot of unconscious bias that manifests itself really in death by 1,000 cuts for a lot of women in product. And people aren't even aware. This literally just happened to me this week where I closed out a session and I said words like, let this be a beginning and not an end. And then my male counterpart literally said exactly the same words and didn't acknowledge that I had just said them. He just said, so let's just let this be a beginning and not an end. And I'm like, did he even, like, was he listening? Was something happening? So it's these tiny little things that people aren't aware that start to collect and might create an influences in terms of how you are perceived. So it's knowing that that exists, that you have to guard against and be careful of. And there are two things. Don't let it frustrate you, because just know, like, it's table stakes, it just happens. But then also don't be afraid sometimes to step in and correct and make sure you're the one that's shaping perceptions. When there's a misperception or where someone says something like that, call them aside and say, hey, I don't know if you noticed this. Just increase other people's awareness. I'll also say in other parts of the world, there is a little more bias than even what we experience here in the States. And just to be aware of that context as you navigate your career, that it's something that you are facing, whether it's explicit or not. So it's not the most obvious blocker, but it is something that absolutely influences your path.
Yeah. I think Martina, the fact that you called out that bias, and I know you've experienced it. You just gave a great example. I certainly have experienced it. When I was first starting out in product, there were many times where I was the only woman in the room, and that can be incredibly intimidating, especially when you're younger. Now that I'm older, it's less intimidating. Because, as you gain more experience and you are viewed as someone who has that experience, it gets a lot easier. But early on, not letting that intimidation overcome you is something that is, I think of it as a practice. It's something that you have to keep practicing to get better and better at. And I'm not saying fake it till you make it, so to speak, but really making sure that you put yourself in situations, it gets easier the more you do it. And I found that, it's just something that you have to overcome. It's a challenge without a doubt, but just keep doing it. It's like any kind of exercise routine. It hurts a lot at the beginning, and then you're building that muscle memory. And once you have that muscle memory, it becomes second nature. And that's unfortunately something that we have to do. It's not given to us.
Thank you so much, Lea. Thank you. So we have another question from Ella, which is almost similar. I'll quickly read it out. Have you experienced resistance when you're leading men with a different perspective? And how do you deal with it?
I would say I dealt with it differently at the beginning of my career than I do now. And I definitely feel like I have a more refined skill set. So very important hack. In the beginning of my career, I would always try and lean on data and facts to be solely persuasive. And now my more evolved skill set is I talk about the context and my intentions before getting to any of the fact base. Sometimes what happens if you have a different perspective than someone else, you come in with that different perspective and they are just prepared to do battle and defend their perspective. And so if you initiate the conversation with context first, I'm really just trying to make sure that we are choosing the best strategy for our long-term goals. With that in mind, then introduce your facts. So it creates an opportunity for alignment as opposed to just here's where we are different, where one of us is going to have to win and the other is going to have to accede. So that context setting lets you find places to build agreement. And I wish I'd had that skill earlier in my career, but it's a huge, huge game changer.
Yeah, that's great advice. I'm assuming, Ella, in the question, when you say leading men, I don't know if you're talking about managing men or leading a group to accomplish a task, but I'm going to hone in on the managing men because throughout my career, I've spent a lot of time where I've had men directly reporting to me, and it's a little bit different. Right. I've even been in a situation where I've been the manager of a group, and some of the men who are reporting to me believe that they should have been my manager. And Martina's smiling because I know for a fact she's experienced this as well. for that, I think it is important to build that rapport and relationship with the people on the team, and also build that trust and credibility with the team, so that they understand over time why you're in the position that you're in, and how they can trust you to be an advocate and help teach them certain things. So one of the things that I've always tried to do is align on where that individual wants to grow. And I think that a lot of times when it's been a man that I've been trying to develop that coaching plan for, I think they're just not used to people actually wanting to help them. And so that's actually one hack that I have in terms of building that rapport with men who have reported to me. Like, help me help you get to where you want to be. Let's talk about where you want to be. And I think it's a little bit disarming, but I also think it's very appreciated. So that's my hack on managing men.
I'll also throw out one other thing. I'll just call it straight up ego stroking. Men, people in general, but I think men don't often get acknowledged for their strengths, and they really appreciate it. And as it relates to building that trust and rapport, depending on which research you believe, it's either 4 or 7 positive comments to negative is what puts money in that trust bank. And so you actually, it's kind of sometimes feel like, man, I really have to say a lot of positive things to be able to have that rapport strong enough that when they hear something that's a little more critical, like, actually, like this happened to me, someone who was super achievement oriented and almost always hit the ball out of the park, did something that wasn't great. Luckily, I'd had enough in the trust bank that I could come back to him and say, like, you always, and I had to acknowledge, this is where you always hit the ball out of the park, but this is why this particular thing isn't as strong as what you usually do. So let's talk about how to get it there. But then he wasn't defensive because I had first acknowledged what he was doing well. So something to keep in mind.
Thanks for
Thank
that,
you,
Martina.
I'll move on to our next question from Zainab. I'm trying to highlight it there, Mo. How important would you say it is to have female role models? And did you have one? And could you share that experience? And before I have Lea and Martina answer that, I just wanted to tell you all, for myself, as a first-generation college grad, and also being one of the only women in the conference room, I had 2 female role models in particular that they completely changed the trajectory of my career. So I think it's very important, but I'll defer to Martina and Lea.
Martina, I'll let you go first because I'm curious if we have the same one.
I will say I didn't find my female role models in my industry typically. What I found most inspiring were, like, my role models for most of my life was Oprah. And then when Michelle Obama hit the scene, it became Michelle Obama. Because what I admired most about them was how they stood for more than the job that they were in, and how they were so good at being their authentic selves in whatever arena they were. And I found that powerful, and that was what I wanted to bring to whatever I did. Because I knew my career wasn't going to be a linear path, and I knew I was going to be doing many different things. And so when I'm a teacher in front of a classroom, being approachable and an expert and open all at the same time. And when I'm speaking versus when I'm in a conference room at our partnership, trying to make a compelling case for why we should make an investment, I have to use different skill sets. But the more I can be my authentic self, this kind of gets to the point of difference, then people can accept the ways in which I'm different or think about things differently. And those 2 women, for me, exemplified how I wanted to be in the world. So for me, those were my best models and examples.
Yeah. There were a couple of people when Martina and I both worked at Netscape that were female leaders, where it was the first time. And what little bit of backstory, when I first came to Netscape, this was the mid-90s, 1990s. And prior to that, I had been at IBM. And at IBM, there were not any female role models that I could recall. And Netscape was really the first time that I saw women in a VP or above position. Jen Bailey is a great example of someone. She, was a great leader at the time, and she was someone that I had a tremendous amount of respect for at Netscape. But Martina calls out something that I think is really important, which is you don't have to look at your company, you don't have to look at your industry to find the people that you aspire to be like. There was one woman in my life that was, two actually, that was a significant guidepost in my life, and she was my grandmother's cousin, and she was a Catholic nun of all things, and her name was Leonora, and I was actually named after her. That's my proper given name. And she was this amazing woman where in the 80s, during the AIDS crisis, she went against her religion, and she actually actively engaged with the community to help people who were suffering with AIDS. And she was the type of person that would break glass, do things, be that authentic self that Martina was talking about, because she saw a higher purpose. I try to be that authentic self as well, but also to do things that are unexpected just because they're right. So I know we're going off topic of product, but finding those people who inspire you in life, I think is really, really important. And I'm glad Martina called that out, because it's, I believe in that same thing.
Thank you, Lea. So I'll take the next question. It's similar to the question we previously answered about leading men with different perspectives. This is is there a hack for managing your engineers effectively? And I think this person is trying to refer to male engineers now. How do you manage them effectively? Aside the tip Martina gave, do you have something else that we can use?
It's funny, Lee and I talked about this in our session earlier this week. I think a really important thing with engineers in particular is showing curiosity, specifically in let them be expert in whatever it is that they are expert in, and ask a lot of questions so that you learn from them. They really do appreciate that curiosity. And you will learn so much when they don't dumb it down. I literally on Wednesday had a conversation with an engineer for 1 hour and 15 minutes. He's building a foundation model around voice, and he did not dumb a single thing down. And I maybe understood 75% of what he was saying, but I learned so much. And in being curious and in asking questions, he never started to say, oh, she's clearly not getting it, so I better start dumbing it down. I would just lean in, I'd show curiosity, and he would tell me more. And I just ate it up, and it totally inspired me. So that's a really great hack for engineers. They appreciate that curiosity. They want to show you things. And I've always found I exit those conversations inspired about something that I didn't know that is now possible with technology that makes me think differently about product.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've always felt that engineers really wanted to understand the why behind what we were doing, and tying the work that they're doing back to the business and the business results that we're going to achieve, I think is incredibly important. And I think a lot of times in the transactional relationship that we have sometimes, or we might fall into with engineers, all of that is lost. So tying the work that they're doing, the code that they're writing, back to why and how it's going to impact the business and how it's going to impact the customer, creating that connection point is really, really important, and usually very appreciated with the engineers on the team.
Thank you. Yeah, so Lea talked about explaining why we're building that feature, and Martina talked about being curious, asking questions, and building like a rapport with your engineers. So that will help you to be able to manage them effectively. So over to you, Mary, for the next question. I'll just highlight it.
Sure. So I was going to pick that question from Mayowa. Okay. So Fubi, how do you go about building your own product sense? Is that, I think you maybe be referring to your own product knowledge or the skills about being a product manager yourself?
Lea, do you want to start?
Yeah. I mean, I have to say, like, this is something that I've always been passionate about products. I've always used a ton of products. It's that curiosity. We were talking about curiosity a little earlier, and that curiosity about how things work, what works well, what doesn't work well. I think you naturally gain that and grow that over time by using a lot of different products and actually trying to deconstruct them. That intellectual curiosity is really, really important in product. And I actually, this is kind of a recruiting hack that I always use. I always look for people who have hobbies, right? I'm trying to gauge, I think the best product managers in the world are the ones who have that intellectual curiosity. So I tend to see people who have hobbies where they have to learn and practice and get more knowledge around, like whether it's being a musician or being on a sports team, those types of hobbies demonstrate to me that that person is intellectually curious. And so I tend to really focus on that when I'm recruiting people. And so for yourself, it's, you know, it's just by interacting and using and learning new things. I think that helps build your product sense as well.
I'd say for myself, the single most powerful thing that helped me develop what I would say is customer-centric product self was watching customers use the products. It is so humbling. The very first usability test I witnessed, it was a self-identified advanced word processing user and doing what we would call a very simple document. And we watched him do it. It would have taken any of us who were product managers max 10 minutes. And I'm not talking about typing speed. It's just using the features to be more productive. It took him 30 minutes. He was constantly menu surfing. And we're like, oh my God, and this guy considers himself to be advanced. And it's just very humbling to realize when it comes to product usage, how customers actually use what you've envisioned is always different, always much more narrow. They just get into patterns. And I think it's utterly critical for us to always realize and approach product with humility and say, what do people actually do when this is in their hands? And what's their knowledge base and how they apply it here? So I always, when someone shows me their favorite app, I'm not like looking at the app and its features. I'm watching how they use it. How intuitive is that interface and how are they engaging with it? And what is it that delights them? Because that's the foundational product sense that you need to apply in anything that you're doing is, are we building towards what the technology is making possible? Are we making everything visible? Or are we making decisions and choices that let the user accomplish what they need? And observing customers using products, I think, is one of the best ways to develop that skill.
Thank you, Lea and Martina. And Martina, you mentioned humility in that answer. And I'm actually going to drop an article into the chat that was penned by Marty Kagan, one of the partners of Lea and Martina. It's from a few years back, but in this article he wrote why women make the best product managers. He outlined 5 or 6 traits, and humility was one of them. So I'll drop that article into the chat for everyone. Moy, do you want to take the next question?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Mary. So for the next question, I will ask my question, then ride on Zainab's question. So my first question to Martina and Lea is, what initially made you go into the product field? What interested you? Why did you choose a career in product, be it product marketing or product management? Then after that, we'll take Zainab's question. She's asking, if you could look back at your younger self starting out in tech, what advice would you give? So we'll take the first question, then Zainab's question.
Do you want me to go, Martina?
Sure.
Yeah. So, what interested me in a role in product? I actually, when I was working at IBM, I was in the IBM consulting group and I was building applications for other companies. But I would not consider that necessarily a product role. It was more of almost more of an IT type role. And then when I went to Netscape, I actually worked for Marty and I was a technology evangelist. And this was at a time when we were trying to get large software organizations to use internet technologies. and build web front ends. And so we were evangelizing the technologies to get them to change. And it was at Netscape that I took my first product role, which was an e-commerce based product. And the reason why I did that is because I actually wanted to get closer to the business and closer to the customers, because it really sparked an interest in me, which, you know, I really, really liked. Similarly, when I go to the second question, and I look back at my younger self, one of the things that I wish I did differently is I thought at the time I needed to know everything, and I needed to be able to answer every question. And nothing is further from the truth. And with that, I had a little bit of an arrogant nature about myself. And I wish I knew that I could be humble from the perspective that I didn't need to know everything and ask for help. I was not very good at that early on. I'm really good at it now, but I was not good at that early on in my career. And I think it really alienated some people that I worked with, quite frankly.
Man, I'm just going to say +1 to what Lea just said. And I'll say this is a conundrum for women in product, because expertise is valued and competence is valued. And so you walk into these environments and you want to display it. But it is that really fine line that Lea was talking about, which is it is totally okay to say, I don't know the answer. And I'd love to, do you have a point of view? Have you heard or seen something like that? So it was exhibiting that openness and curiosity and leaning more into that earlier in my career than the, oh, I have to be expert because I have to show up like I know what I'm doing. And I'll just own that it's really hard to know when is the right side to fall on that line. But had I known earlier in my career that it's okay, even when I'm very, very new, to just say, tell me more, showing that curiosity, leaning in, being open. I wish I'd done more of that earlier in my career. So total +1 to what Lea said. And how what fell into product really was I did kind of fall into it. I did an internship in college at Kraft Germany. And this was just after the Berlin Wall, which many of you, this happened before you were born, I think. It came down. And so it was a product marketing position. So I was for coffee, new channels. So for kiosks and magazine stands where we were selling coffee on Sundays in Germany, which was a big deal. And we were just promoting, like, hey, we're gonna be at this trade show. So that's promotion, and which was the marketing side. And then we actually built a new product that would be released in the firm Eastern German markets. And it was a new display that would be on countertops. And I was the one that drove that and made that happen. And I looked at this, I was like, these are both really cool things. I love them both, but it was so empowering to build something. So I knew I always wanted to mix both of these things. And so when I landed, the reason I landed at Microsoft was because of that internship, because I had done marketing and because I'd also built a product. And they're like, your resume stood out. And then I was very customer centric in that interview process. So I did not know much about technology when I started at Microsoft. So I was drinking from a fire hose. But each thing that I was given, I just wanted to make better. And that's what set me off on my path. And I bounced back and forth between marketing, which I really enjoyed because it could be so customer centric, to product, because I realized you really don't have much to promote unless you built a really great product. So we better build a really customer centric product right from the start. And just bouncing back and forth, I've found has made me better at both.
All right. Thank you, Martina and Lea. Mary, you can take the next question.
Sure. The next question is from Sandra. And she asks, this is a little more tactical for product execution, I think, but what do you do when your company isn't concerned about the metrics of the product that you're managing and they're only focused on updating the features and maintaining it?
Lea, you should start.
I know. So you have to make them interested in the metrics. So one of the most important things to do is to tie the work that you're doing on the product back to the business results and how you're trying to have an impact on the business. So a lot of times when we're building out our product vision and our product strategy, we have to tell that story and that narrative around the why solving these problems are important for the customer and why solving these problems are important for the business. and here's how we're going to measure success. So that narrative around tying the metrics back to the business is one of the most important things you can do as a product manager. That's the work that you evangelize. You basically take some of those product marketing skills that Martina talks about and loved, and you apply them to the story you're telling about product. This I actually think is one of the most fun parts of product management, is that evangelism in terms of making your stakeholders and the company care about why we're measuring success in this particular way. So basically connecting the dots for people and tying it back to the business impact and the customer impact. You have to tell that story.
I couldn't agree with Lea more. And I'll say also, if your leadership, because what often happens is you might be doing that, but then the leadership says, you know, what we really need are these features. And it's the C-suite that are making these asks. And so everyone says like, well, we have to do these features because the C-suite is asking for them. Always take those features and say, great, yes. And can you help me tie these back to the business objectives we think they're aligned to? Or how else do we think this is going to improve our revenue projections? So you help connect their thinking, because they've already rushed to the solution. It's this feature. And you are just taking that next extra step of saying, let's make sure we're on the same page about the why behind this. And is it aligned to why we believe this is necessary for our business objective or our revenue? Because it's easy for people in the C-suite to lose sight of the fact that that's why you should be bringing a feature in. So it's just engaging in dialogue and bringing it back to that.
Yeah, just to comment on Martina's comment, there's two techniques that work whenever a stakeholder, the C-suite, anyone comes to you with a feature idea. Employ the rule of improv, which Martina just demonstrated, which is yes and then the 5 whys. So if you always think of those two hacks, right? The 5 whys are, and why do you think that's important? And why do you think that, you're getting more clarification. And that also can help mitigate the tell that you're getting from your stakeholder, because if they can't come up with a why behind it, that's a pretty good indicator that it might not be a problem worthy of solving, which is important as well.
Fantastic. And I didn't mean to skip over you, Luwafami. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced your name. But your question is, when you're having a blackout in your business, how do you handle that?
So this is literally the power is out and we have no product while we're out of power. I just want to clarify that's what we're talking about. Is that what we're talking about?
Do you mind clarifying your question in the chat, please, about the blackout? Because I'm talking about like a dip in product growth or a dip in business growth.
I will say I don't have any experience with the power out version of blackout.
I don't either. I mean, I'm assuming that if it's your business has stalled and you're not getting the type of growth that you want, I think that's something that we can both talk about. Martina, do you want to take a first stab at that?
Yeah, if it is we're stalled and we need to grow or reignite what we're doing, I think it's really important for the leadership team to get together and fully explore the landscape of possibility, as well as, well, first of all, to say what has been in the way of us in the market, and just have an honest assessment of why you're not succeeding. So why are you losing? Why are people choosing other alternatives? How are they solving this problem? I think it's really critical also to gather a lot of information from your customers. Why do they choose you? Why are they staying with you? So you really want to deepen your understanding of your situational context, the market, and your customer's reality. And any improvement has to be grounded in that, marinating basically in all of those market and customer facts. And then once you understand all of that, and distill out what are the most essential things that are opportunities for us or mega trends that we should be leveraging, then to fully explore the landscape of possibilities. Some of them might be product solutions. Some of them might be purely marketing solutions. Some of them might be better solved with partners or getting more funding. There are lots of different ways to solve problems. And you just need to make sure that you are doing the work to fully understand what it is that is in the way of your success before you start choosing solutions and ways to get through.
Yeah, and the clarification came up in the chat, which is when you have no idea where to even start. It's the tyranny of the blank page. And I think everything that Martina said about getting out, meeting with customers, understanding the problems that they're having, doing that preliminary discovery is the exact same path that you would take if you don't have any idea of how to get started. First, you're going to try to identify that problem to solve. And then you're going to try to figure out if there are enough people to solve that problem for. That's basically the foundation of how to get started on any new product opportunity. But you should definitely not start building something until you've really identified what problem it is and if it's a big enough problem to be worthy of solving.
I'll say to you, I work with really early stage startups and many at company formation. And so this is the hardest thing, which is like, okay, I have permission to start from scratch. What's a problem we're solving? And Inspired and everything that SVPG does really covers this in spades, but it's absolutely critical to really interrogate the value access. How much is this valued relative to how people already solve the problem? It's very rare that people aren't doing something already. And so you have to find something that has disproportionate value because you're trying to make people change how they work. So an example of this is an entrepreneur that we're working with. They were trying to figure out, and they were in the MarTech space, they're trying to figure out, well, what can we build that's going to add value? Now, this is in a space that already has 10,000 players in it. So what else can we build that's totally novel? And they were finding all these tiny little wedges where people, yeah, that'd be interesting. Yeah, that'd be interesting. And then they realized what people really want to do is they want to throw out this old tech. So it was a huge rip and replace initiative that people said, if I could find a better, cheaper alternative to this, I would throw it out tomorrow. So they were looking for the easy little thing, and they realized in this very mature market, the real opportunity is around doing a much bigger thing. And so that's what they're going to do.
All right.
Go ahead.
Thank you for answering, Martina and Lea. So we have a question from Mayowa. How do you balance being empathetic and assertive?
Oh, that delicate balance. I have found that a good sense of humor helps. Being, your authentic self, being genuine absolutely helps. I think and again, I think this is a female thing. Being assertive is a very delicate balance because it can be misconstrued in a lot of ways. But I think that if you can be assertive and balance it appropriately, and I've always used my sense of humor as a way of doing that because it lightens things a bit and makes it more approachable. I think that is a helpful way to navigate that. Being empathetic, I think, is something that we should all do. I think it's something that I don't necessarily look at the balance between empathy and assertiveness. I look at it more as something that has to be present in any interaction you have with the people around you, whether they be customers, whether they be people that you work with. Putting yourself in their shoes is something that is very, very helpful to understand and to consider where they might be coming from. So that's kind of the way that I look at both of those things.
I agree with everything that Lea said. And I'll say, how does this show up in the wild in an actual meeting you might be in? One way is to acknowledge what you've heard. And that is how people realize, oh, you do really see and understand me. So what I've heard is, this might be a customer story, or this might be a colleague. I've heard you, I'm listening. And then you add what it is that the point that you want to make, but you simultaneously acknowledge, I've heard you, I'm listening. And now I'm going to tell you this other thing. That's one way that you can actually do this in any kind of meeting situation that shows both. Mary, I think
Unmute myself. Sorry about that. So I just wanted to let everybody know, like, this has been a really interesting conversation of like product practice versus kind of career development and individual actions and behaviors as professionals. So one of the things that I learned from Martina's book are the four fundamentals of product marketing, and I dropped them into the chat. Sorry, the formatting is a little funky, but I feel like those four fundamentals of product marketing also apply to us individually as professionals in our own brand stories. So having an ambassador, being a strategist, being a storyteller, which the explanation there is to shape how the world thinks about your product or about yourself, and having an evangelist that can enable others to tell your story. So Martina and Lea, when we have questions in this chat about imposter syndrome and how to balance that, and what are your work mantras and sayings to help get you through those stressful situations, would you apply those for product marketing fundamentals and others, or what advice do you have for this audience in that vein?
Well, Mary, you asked me, I'd actually never thought of the four product marketing fundamentals and applying them to a person and their career. But when you brought that up, I said, it is a great way to think about it. And I do separate trying to plan for your career and being intentional in your career. And those four fundamentals will very much help you in being intentional in how your career evolves, and also allowing for that flexibility. So ambassador, that's customer and market. So how does that manifest for you as a human? It might be, what are the interests that you have relative to the job positions that are available, and how do you bridge that gap, and how do you talk about that? And the strategist, it might be, well, these are the things that are foundationally important to me, and here are the things that I'm flexible on. And so I'm going to direct toward what's most important. And then I'm just not going to worry, is it B2B? Is it B2C? Is it at a big company? Is it a small company? Those are the things you might flex on. And then the storytelling, this is one where I'll say, in the professional arena, making sure your LinkedIn presence represents how you want to show up. It is critically important. Anyone that's passing around your information to anyone that else might hire, even if you have a resume, you have to assume the very first place they go is LinkedIn. And so if you have point of view, if you care about being seen a particular way, this is where you get to own and drive your narrative of you. So spend time on your LinkedIn profile. It does actually matter for anywhere you might want to end up. And on that evangelism, this is people, peers, advocating on your behalf. So you can show that on LinkedIn. I don't think that's as important as it used to be, but you just you want people to have something to say about you and be able to advocate for you when you are, especially for leadership positions. This can't be underemphasized in any way. For you to get that leadership position, it has to be a whole lot of other people advocating on your behalf. So just make sure they know why they should believe.
The one, Mary, well said, Martina. The one thing I do want to call out, in your question, you raised imposter syndrome. And I do want to state that I have not met a single person in my career that did not suffer from imposter syndrome, period, exclamation point. Everyone suffers from it. And this is where that practice that we talked about earlier helps you overcome the imposter syndrome. When I joined SVPG 8 years ago, and Marty said, I want you to go out and talk to people about product, I thought to myself, and this is after a 25-year career, why on earth would anyone listen to me talking about product? And Marty, who's a great coach, great mentor, great advisor, he helped me overcome that imposter syndrome. And as I said, I don't know a single person, I'm sure Martina would agree, a single person who hasn't suffered from this. And you just have to put yourself out there. So if you're putting yourself out there on LinkedIn, if you're putting yourself out there by going to, Mind the Product or Product Tanks, like, you got to put yourself out there, because that's going to help it be a lot easier and help you overcome that imposter syndrome.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. I think, Moy, we're coming up on the hour. So there's one last question in here that I love. What are your work mantras, your phrases or sayings that help you pull through those stressful or tough times?
Go ahead, Lea.
You know, mine is just one is be yourself. I always try to tell myself, just be yourself. Yeah, let yourself shine through. But there's one that I learned when I was in some executive education class when I was working at Adobe. And it's before you're getting ready to present. And this is a hack that they actually taught all of the executives. There's this notion of curtain up. So the minute before you're ready to speak, you just imagine that curtain, you're on stage, you imagine that curtain going up. And what it does is it actually allows you to channel your energy and help you get through the presentation, help you get through the meeting. So I always, in my mind, tell myself curtain up, and then I'm present. And that's something that I use every week still to this day.
I love that. For me, the two things I'll share are, especially before anything that's really big and of consequence, it's to breathe deeply. And I always make myself stop and pause and take 3 really deep breaths. And it's calming and it's centering. It's not a mantra, but it is physiologically, it totally just helps me just be okay with where I am and just settle whatever nerves I might have for whatever the situation is. And then the other, which I wouldn't say is just a work mantra, it's a little bit more of a life mantra, but it's to let your light shine. And by letting your light shine, it gives others permission to shine brightly. And that's a very encapsulated Nelson Mandela quote, but I really do believe in that from a life perspective. And it applies as much in life as it does in work, but it's not always easy to do. So I always try and remind myself.
Thank you, Martina. Mary, do you have yours? Do you want to tell?
Yeah, actually, this will, I don't know if all of you, when my kids were little, their favorite movie was Finding Nemo. And when Ellen DeGeneres was just keep swimming, that's what makes me smile and kind of keeps me going.
Yeah, so I give it a thumbs up because I absolutely love Finding Nemo. And I love that phrase, to just keep swimming. So mine will be one step at a time.
Mhm.
And also, a lot can happen in a day. One step at a time, a lot can happen in a day. Thank you very much, Lea and Martina. Mary, do you want to say something before I give my announcements? Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you all for joining from around the world today. Fantastic questions, Lea and Martina. Your guidance and your insights are so incredibly valuable. And thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us.
Yes. And thank all of you for being here, spending your Saturday night with us.
Thank you.
So we'll take some announcements now. Mary will go first, then
Yes.
I'll go.
So at the kickoff of today's call, I had mentioned that I had the opportunity to meet Lea and Martina by attending the Inspire Africa conference last September in Lagos. It is the passion project of Christian Idioti, who is another partner of Silicon Valley Product Group. And I would be remiss if I didn't give it a shout out to let everybody know that the Inspire Africa conference is coming back for a second year. It will be October 15th through 18th in Lagos again. I know it's very early, but registration is open. But if any of you have questions or comments or are interested in nominating speakers from your organizations or even potentially sponsoring this event, please reach out to me on LinkedIn because I am helping Christian and his team with this event again this year. So thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Mary. So I'll take the next announcement. So if you'd like to sponsor a product tank, please scan the QR code on the screen. When you sponsor a product tank event, you basically get enough time to market your products to our attendees, and you also help us with stuff like beverages, even getting the venue for the event for us, just so that the event is free for our participants and they don't have to pay any money. Because our goal at the end of the day is to gather all product people for free so that they can learn and network. If you're also interested in speaking at the event, you can scan the QR code here as well, and we will look at your interesting topics or the idea that you would like to share with the product community, and then contact you to see how we can make it possible for you to speak at our events. Finally, we have some free codes that we'll be sharing with you to take free certification courses from Mind the Product and Pendo. So this is our little way of saying thank you for attending today's meetup, and we want to see you grow. So we have 4 courses: Becoming Product-Led, Product Analytics, Product Management Basics, and AI for Product Management. I will drop the link in the chat box so that you can register for these courses for free, take the lessons, post them on your LinkedIn, and tag ProductTank Lagos and Mind the Product when you're done. Okay, so let me quickly drop the link in the chat box so we can have access to these courses. Please do well to follow us on all social media platforms, Instagram, LinkedIn, and X as well. Tag us, tell us your favorite moments from this virtual meetup, and also you can reach out, you can connect with Martina and also Lea via LinkedIn, as well as Mary, and also contact Mary if you're interested in Inspire Africa. One more announcement and we will be good to go. So if your company is interested in a general product training for your product team, please scan the QR code and then you can get more information on how to go about this. So Mind the Product actually offers product trainings for companies and product teams, and this includes product management fundamentals, communication and alignment, metrics for product managers. We had a question about metrics, mapping to solve product problems. So you can scan the QR code, get the link, share with your colleagues, and then your company can book some of these courses for you to take, for you and your other teammates to take as well. We're almost done with the session. One more thing, one good thing about being a member of ProductTank Lagos and also Mind the Product is the fact that you would always have access to discounts and free events. So Mind the Product, in partnership with Pendo, will be having Mind the Product conference in various cities later this year. We have one that will be happening in Amsterdam on June 18th. We have another one in London for those in London on June 20th, and finally in Berlin for June 27th. So once you enter the discount code ProductTank, you get a discount when you're registering. So you can scan the QR code and enter ProductTank while registering to get your discount. I will leave this on for like a minute and move on to the next slide. Oh, I can see a lot of thank yous in the chat box. Thank you for staying with us. Thank you for joining the session and for inviting your friends too. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, everyone. So one more thing to note is that ProductTank Lagos, like I mentioned earlier, we host virtual meetups and also physical meetups as well. Our physical meetups happen every quarter, and we will be planning one for Q3. So please join us on Meetup, follow us on all social media platforms, and be on the lookout for our emails where we'll communicate our next physical meetup so that you can attend an in-person event, meet me and the other amazing volunteers at ProductTank Lagos, because I do not do this by myself. I have the amazing Shay for me who helps me with content. I also have an amazing product designer as well who helps with all our designs that we put out there. And there's room for more volunteers. If you'd want to volunteer with us at ProductTank Lagos, please do well to send me a message on LinkedIn, or you can reach out to the ProductTank Lagos group on LinkedIn as well. And you can also message us on X and Instagram to indicate your interest, and we will see how we can make it possible for you to join us and volunteer. Today's session was really insightful. Once again, I want to thank Martina and Lea for joining us this evening. For those in Lagos, we are grateful. We're happy that you were able to share your experience and your knowledge with us. And we hope that this will happen sometime soon. And also we'll have another session with Mary as well for her to share expertise and her knowledge as well. Mary, do you have final words before we leave the session?
Just thank you all. Brilliant questions, and just keep swimming.
Just keep swimming. Thank you, everyone. All right. Good night, everyone. Have a lovely evening for those in Lagos, and have a lovely afternoon for those outside Nigeria. Bye.
Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.